If you grew up in the 80s and lived in Japan and didn't have a Nintendo, chances are you were playing your Konami games on one of these. I am the Game Collector and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at the MSX computer.
Second Opinion Games.
1942 is one of the most bare-bone shooters that ever was. Even in the arcade, it always seemed bland to me. On the MSX computer, however, it is excruciatingly bland. You have to fire by tapping the fire button as fast as possible. There's no music going on in the background, but hey, sometimes you can do a loop-de-loop to avoid some enemies that could be coming up behind you. I guess that's mildly useful, and I mean mildly. Now, there are some power-ups that you could pick up to increase the shot strength of your airplane, used to shoot down some Japanese pilots in a game that came out only in Japan for this MSX computer system, and the whole thing just seems weird to me. Also, notice that I am emulating this, and if you stay tuned to the very end, you'll find out what system I am emulating it on, because I'm not very good with computers. So, moving on to our next game. Quartz is a game I also had on the Game Boy and absolutely loved it there, so I was very excited to play it on the MSX. And when I first started playing, I got a very, very short cutscene that gives me a lot more questions than I have answers. So moving on to the gameplay itself, it's sort of like a puzzle game mixed in with a shooter. You basically try to fill in blocks and make them go away. In order to fill in the bigger blocks, you'll get extra points. And it's all about speed here. Sometimes you need to give it a little bit more throttle, in which case then you can push forward, but most of the time you're going to be racing the screen as it scrolls, and it ends up being one excruciatingly fun time. Wherever you can find this game, I recommend you give it a try because it's simple, deep, and a heck of a lot of fun. Outrun was a Sega arcade title that was known for making me want to wear my freaking seatbelt. If you smashed into anything, the car will flip over, launching your little guys out and probably killing everyone. But the car just restarts then. You're constantly racing against the clock here to 3 familiar tunes that are actually done quite well, even on the limited chipset of the MSX. But in this game, it is excruciatingly difficult. If you get in one single accident, you will never even clear the first level of this game. Now, you do have high and low speeds by pressing up and down to change gears to increase your speed, and that helps around corners, but this still ends up being one of the most difficult racing experiences you will ever have. Return of Ishtar is an overhead adventure game. Now, Ishtar, I believe, is some type of god of fertility, so I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into here, so I just went ahead and picked 2 female characters. You shoot fireballs at purple things and collect keys to try to open up doors, but I couldn't figure out how to do so. Maybe I'm missing some of the buttons with my emulator here, so I can't really grasp what's going on, and then a whole lot of crazy dots decide to swarm me and kill me dead. If you could figure out how to play this, well, good for you, but I can't. Treasure of Yusuf. I don't know. Japanese names are really weird, and this one is no exception. In this 2D side-scrolling adventure, you collect stuff by playing as 2 different kids. One of them likes to kick the crap out of zombies and push around pods to jump on, and the other one has a freaking gun that he uses to shoot zombies and a whole lot of everything else. The whole point of the game is to explore, and in that, it really does quite well. Sometimes the gameplay itself gets frustrating, the controls get in the way more than anything, but I can see myself having a blast with this given a long enough period of time. However, time is not on my side today, so I gotta keep moving on. Grey Unya is another Japanese name that I am not pronouncing correctly at all. It's sort of an overhead running shooter game where you run your little guy around and you shoot up a whole lot of enemies. If you come to a boss, you could try to kill it or get your total butt kicked by it, but sometimes when you come to a boss, you might just morph into a dragon out of freaking nowhere and cut him down to size. This is a very interesting game, to say the least. I think the shooting parts are really badly done. Also, the scrolling is super choppy. The MSX was really not known for clean scrolling at all. That's why a lot of games are just one screen only, and this probably should have stayed like that. It's one that I recommend you stay away from, which would be easy because it's on a Japanese computer. Girly Block is a game about robots in a total deathmatch. Why does it have the name Girly Block for one? Maybe it's one of those Xbox Live things where they just take two words and slam them together. My best friend's name on Xbox Live is Manly Salmon just because of this reason. And even famous YouTuber Mr. Beast got his name for the same thing. So maybe there's just some type of name generator out there that is just plain awful at its job. So we have robots that we could completely run into other robots and try to blow them up. Most of the time, you're going to try and just damage boost your way through the entire game, but sometimes strategy is involved. But where this game is the most fun is the fact that you could actually customize your robot and try to build him from scratch and figure out what is the best combination of parts to dispatch the other robots with. And sometimes things get frustrating when the robot just doesn't work exactly how you want it to. Sometimes the amount it can jump is really hindered, and other times your weapons themselves don't fire how you think that they should. This game is about as interesting as his name is, which means it's quite interesting. Family Boxing is a boxing game. Now the crowd is looking pretty darn sharp in the background. You run around trying to beat up your other guy in a what should be a normal boxing experience, and it feels like that, except for the fact it's really hard to hit that other guy, and it's really easy for you to get hit, so chances are you're gonna be eating canvas by round one. If you do happen to clear round one, well then you'll tap your buttons as fast as possible to regain health, and wait a second, what is going on here? What is your ring man doing to your guy? This looks pretty darn awful. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and it's a good thing I never see round two, like more than 10 seconds in, because I'm eating canvas again. If you're good at boxing games and you think you could figure this out, well, this one might be for you. Metal Gear is the most well-known MSX game, and yes, the NES game itself is crap by comparison. I'm not saying the graphics are better here, no, the Nintendo had better graphics, but gameplay-wise, it is far superior on the MSX. However, on my emulator, the buttons just don't work how they should, so I can't get very far at all. Even if I do pick up the pistol and some rations and a key card, I'm eventually going to die because I can't use any of those. However, you do not have to have an MSX computer to play this game. If you have a PlayStation 2, there are certain copies of Metal Gear Snake Eater that have the full version of the game on it, so I recommend playing it that way. In that case, you'll have yourself a blast with one of the best Metal Gear games ever made, even if it is in 8-bit. Super Rambo Special is a Metal Gear clone, believe it or not, and also Rambo himself is super special here, running around with his knife, trying to track down a pistol or a shotgun to blow up your foes. Yes, you're better staying in the shadows and not being spotted at all, which is easy to do because your enemies are just really dumb. They will just walk back and forth, and if they happen to be directly in your line of sight, they will shoot you dead, or maybe throw grenades at you. Any way you look at it, it's really easy to die in this game because everyone has guns except for you with your stinking little knife, and if you can get a hold of a gun, well, it only has 5 or 6 bullets, and you will die before they will every single time. This is way too special for me. I'd much rather be playing Metal Gear. Dragon Buster is an action side-scroller made by Namco where you swing a sword around and kill people, and there's some light RPG elements throughout the game. Now, sadly, I can't quite figure out the controls again because sometimes I was able to shoot a fireball out, but most of the time I could not replicate it at all. You do have a slight double jump here, there's some branching paths to mix up the gameplay a bit, and the enemies here all look pretty awesome. Trying to avoid getting hit, though, is really frustrating, especially when you come to fight this freaking dragon that can't stop blowing fire on you. He just kills me dead every single time. But I'm definitely going to come back to this game because I cannot wait to see what it has in store for me if I finally beat this dragon. Space Mambo, sure, why not have a really stupid name in probably an average experience? And no, this one's made by Konami, and look at that! Freaking parallax scrolling, and the whole thing's moving quite fast. There's also tons of sprites on screen at any given time, and sometimes the screen even scrolls vertically as well as horizontally. Man, how did the freaking programmers make this game? They must have been wizards to get it to run on the MSX. You power up your ship as you progress through the level. However, if you get hit even one time, well, you will explode and lose all of your power-ups, meaning that you're not going to be able to clear any more of the level. Going back quite a bit and trying to start all over is something you're gonna get used to doing if you want to make it anywhere in this epic experience. It's a lot of fun. At the same time, I really hate it when I die and have to go all the way back to the beginning. It's just not worth it for me. What is worth it for me is the #1 reason to play the MSX is Contra. Now, you've played Contra on the Nintendo, and yes, it is super great there, and it is just as good on the MSX, other than the fact that the screens don't scroll at all. It tends to be a big problem with the system, but the levels seem to be based around that, and they come at you really darn quick. Also, there's no one-hit kills here. Sometimes when you get hit, you just fall down and you lose a little bit of life. Now, you only have 3 lives and no continues to clear all the way through this game, which should be easy because the game itself is relatively short. At least that's what you think, because after you destroy that heart boss, the game keeps on going for another few levels, meaning this whole experience is actually twice as long as what you think it's going to be. Also, when you pick up your laser gun or machine gun or whatever it is, you have the chance to actually pick and choose which power-up you got. That's a little trick that the developers use to free up sprites in the game system itself. And this ends up being one of the coolest Contra experiences that pretty much no one will ever play. And the #1 reason to try to emulate the MSX on the Wii U like I did. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a good time throwing it together really fast because I had an entirely different video plan and some other YouTuber did my exact video just as I was recording my audio for this one. So I kind of rushed it and threw it together as fast as possible. I am really sorry about that, but these things tend to happen. So hopefully you guys can leave me a comment of a video idea that absolutely no one will copy in any way, shape, or form, and then I'll try to hammer it out for you. So until later, I will see you again, guys.